Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Welcome to Phoenix Business Radio, broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studio inside Mac 6 Conscious Workspace in Tempe, Arizona, where we help build businesses and connect you with the right people. I'm your host and Phoenix Business Radio Studio CEO, Karen Nowicki, and I'm very excited to have a couple of guests in the studio from one company here right in Arizona, Joybyte. We have the CEO and owner, Ben Gerster. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Welcome.
Glad to have you. And Triniti Burton, who is the Director of Marketing and Growth. Welcome.
Hello, Karen.
I said when she walked in, I know you. I saw your photo and I know you from somewhere. Do people say that a lot to you? Do you have one of those friendly faces?
Only when I was in college. I was told probably 20 times a day that I looked like Christina Ricci.
But, how funny.
But that's a couple decades ago.
Yeah, right. Okay, I get it. But I think we may have nailed it down or narrowed it down. We're both Chandler residents.
Indeed.
Yeah. Where in Chandler are you, approximately?
Now at Kyrene and Warner, but I was at the Dobson and Ray area for years.
Yeah, and I'm Kyrene and Ray.
Okay.
And you mentioned you've got a house full of people. Do you have kids?
Yes.
In the Kyrene district?
No. My boys both graduated, one from Chandler High, one from Desert Marigold, and then my little girl is in the New School for the Arts and Academics in Tempe, right down the street.
Yeah. My kiddos are 20, my oldest are 23 and 25, and they were Desert Marigold students way back in the day. Could that be it?
Oh,
are they the same age?
No. I mean, my son that graduated from there is 18 now. He graduated last year. But, if you still go to the community events, like the Winter Fair, things like that.
So, okay, well, we'll find it.
I'm anxious. I'm going to leave here, and I actually
You'll
have not
figure it
been
out.
on Facebook in a couple of years, but I'm going to look for you because my guess is we have some mutual
For
connections
sure.
there.
And ridiculously,
Yes.
I'm on there all the time. Can't break that habit, but we're here to talk about digital marketing and how important that is. So this will be fun. We'll talk about Facebook. And Ben, you are a longtime resident of Arizona?
Yeah, actually, I'm pretty much a native at this point. I was 4 years old when I moved here. So
Okay. And East Valley, West Valley, where are you?
Scottsdale.
Okay. Right. Oh, and your business is Old Town area.
Scottsdale. Correct.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
And so you went to high school here?
Went to high school here, went to Chaparral, then went to ASU, went to WP Carey School of Business, studied marketing, and then actually went back to ASU for my master's in visual communication design.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Which is why you're a digital marketer.
Correct.
And we'll talk about that too, because I'm sure there are lots of folks out in digital media who don't have that skill set.
Yeah.
And yet they're out there doing what they do.
Sure.
Now, we're not here to bash anybody, but I've noticed that I've hired folks who've said, I'm bringing the goods. And I'm like, yeah, I could have done better myself.
It's I think there's a conception that the younger generation just understands this stuff. And there's a knack for it that they have because they've grown up with it and they've been inundated with these technologies and these platforms. But there is an art and there is a process of really understanding human psychology and behavior, and that goes into how we create strategies. And so there's a lot more to it than just understanding the platform and how you've used it with your friends.
Yes, very good. And these same kiddos of mine from Desert Marigold are also ASU grads.
Nice.
From WP Carey.
Go Devils.
Yes, my daughter is working for Red Bull now.
Cool.
And they moved her to Brooklyn, and she's been home during the quarantine, waiting for where they're going to send her next. Because when you move up through the ranks with Red Bull, you get these assignments. Hers was as a mouseketeer in Brooklyn doing the on-premise sales. And so it was a 1-year commitment, and she was so grateful. She did all the traveling and all the exploring, the Arizona girl in the Big Apple, and she did it well ahead of having to come home and work from home. So we're anxious to see. I'm hoping she comes home to Arizona, but yeah, we'll see. You got to let her spread her wings and fly.
She'll probably appreciate what Arizona has to offer.
She does. She's already mentioned that, and she's just waiting for that right opportunity. But she loves the company. She loves Red Bull. And, they're certainly, I think, a great example of folks who are doing marketing and digital media really well.
They're a great company that understands their audience, and they understand where to put their brand. Mm-hmm. You would maybe not associate just at first glance an energy drink with some of the environments they put themselves in, but they've done a great job to really integrate with some really exciting lifestyles and get in contact with the younger generations that care about those types of activities. So yeah, they're a great role model.
Yeah. Well, I hope throughout our conversation, if you feel inclined, that you'll mention examples of other great companies.
Sure.
We're not here to bash anybody, but great companies, whether they're clients of yours and you you know that they'd love a shout out, or even just examples like these bigger brands, that would be great. So let's back up a little bit. Tell us about Joybyte. You are a full social media marketing and digital marketing agency.
Correct.
Yeah, I just said that, but what else? Tell me more.
Yeah. So, we've been in business for 7 years. I started this company in 2013 when I was still studying graphic design at ASU. I had really taken it upon myself to learn how to program websites and really started to push the envelope on that scope and got some attention, won some awards, and had a couple businesses start to take notice. And so I was freelancing and out there building stuff for other clients and started to really understand that there was this problem that was out there in the market, which is good design seemed exclusive to people that had a budget for it. And the average small business out there was kind of struggling with lesser grade options when it came to their brand and their marketing materials. So just really took a passion for how could we engineer a service that was value-based and serve smaller businesses. And we flourished. We started picking up a lot of clients. And so with a year left at ASU, I had a tough decision to say to my professor, I really got to make a decision here about what I spend my time on, because I have too many clients to go to school right now. And
tough issue to have.
Tough one. My professor was smart enough to sit me down and say, yeah, you just need to go run your business. And that was really great advice. And I was really appreciative for that. We've had a really exciting ride. And now we're at a place where we've served really a wide range of services over our years. We've built mobile applications, websites. We do full brand strategies, content strategies, digital marketing strategies. But we've come to a place now where we've really tried to narrow that down. And especially during COVID, say, what could we do that's the most value to the community and to small businesses out there during this difficult time economically? That's where we've really focused in on a service of value-based social media marketing.
So explain value-based social media marketing. What does that mean to you?
Sure. So basically, we take the best practices that we do for some of our higher-end clients that have larger engagements with us. And we've really analyzed what worked best for them. Where were we getting the best traction in social media? And we engineered a service that was very systemized and that was efficient. We reduced rates on those services as well, and really trying to tighten that up and give the best value we could. And we came to a place where we understood there's two major positions that a business might find itself in when it comes to social media. They're either not established, they don't have a good foundation in their social media, they don't have the audience built yet, or they're struggling to kind of get to that spot. They're trying, they're out there creating some activity, but it's just not getting traction for them. Or they're a business that has built a pretty good audience, but they're just they don't have the strategy or the time to really push full throttle and get the results that they could for their company. And so we built two programs essentially, and we said, we call it Joybyte Lite. It's a light version of our agency. And we've got a little bite package and a big bite package. And little bite is for a company that's really just looking for the foundation to get established. And the big bite package is for somebody who's ready to move a little faster and accelerate their growth in social media.
Really great. So really focusing on social media, digital marketing, does the branding piece, how important does that come in here when folks are out there celebrating who they are and wanting to have people pay attention to them?
I mean, brand is really critical. It really is the foundation and the starting point, and that's a lot of the value that we bring in, as an agency, having all that experience in branding, being able to create brands, take them to market, evolutionize brands. I say evolutionize versus revolutionize, right? There are so many big established brands that have in recent years taken a step back to re-envision their brands and how they need to alter it and take it to market to, really resonate with what people are looking for today. But that brand foundation from a visual aesthetic appeal and a voice and messaging is critical, right? And you need to think about the brand as if it were a person and how to get to the core and the authenticity of that brand and what it represents and what it stands for and what your values are and what problems you solve and what needs your audience has, and then how you can build a bridge between your audience's needs and the value that you bring to the table. So that's really the starting point for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that you use the word authentic, because we talk about that a lot, is finding the authentic voice of the brand. And especially right now, with all of the things that are going on in society and with the pandemic and all the social issues, this is a really important time that you're not just regurgitating a generic message about the solutions that you offer. You have to be connecting with people at a different level right now.
And where they're at.
Exactly. And brands and companies, they play a major role in our society. And so there's a big opportunity, and a lot of our clients are pretty surprised as we really dig into this with them about really where that opportunity is for them to connect. And one of the things we love about social media is, social media is not just an advertising channel. It's not radio where you're just maybe running ads for your brand. You're 80% of the time trying to entertain or educate the audience out there. That's what they're there for. We go to social media for that kind of escape. So it's a really cool opportunity to find where are you going to add value to your audience's lives around entertaining them or educating them. And you'd be surprised. I mean, even the most common commodities can really add a lot to their audience. And so that's really fun that, we enjoy that process of bringing that out of these companies that we work with.
When you think about, you tie that back to the Red Bull example, right? And that's, they're certainly not pushing Red Bull or their products on social media.
It's an experience,
right? They're
a
creating
lifestyle
content that entertains and engages people, right? They're out there participating in experiences to connect themselves with their audience without it having anything to do with them. So that's part of what businesses need to get in the mind frame of is how can I add value to my customers and audiences' lives without trying to get anything in return. When you add that value, it's certainly going to come back. So it's just building that reciprocity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is that part of the strategy then that you take to companies and organizations that you work with when it comes to their social media strategy?
Oh, certainly.
It's about 80% of the strategy.
Yeah.
Truly that 80-20 rule, that 80% of the content that we create, it needs to be either educational, inspirational, entertaining, and that starts with understanding what the audience is looking for, right? They might be looking for that series of cat memes or dog videos. And so how do you align that with your brand, right? But, if you're looking at small town, you're marketing to small town, rural America, they care about things that are completely different. So really understanding the audience, what they're engaging with today, who they're following, where they're commenting, what they're leaning in on, and then mapping a strategy that mirrors that and leverages it.
Totally. I mean, even again, looking back at Red Bull, one thing they understood really fast is people like to share stuff that's remarkable. Mm-hmm. And so what did they do? They connected themselves immediately with some really epic sports. Yeah, extreme sports. So that's all remarkable stuff. So they're getting just a ton of, attention on their brand associated with remarkable human activity. And we always talk about that is like every brand has an opportunity to be remarkable. Mm-hmm. The way that, and we kind of joke about this, but like even a plumber has a remarkable opportunity in the way that they describe the solution they've had for, unclogging the family toilet is, that can still be a remarkable moment depending on how you decide to engage with your customer on it or your audience around those types of services that you have. So really, I think that the secret weapon that we have is just strategy and creativity. Our team is just really, really creative about looking at the opportunities that are out there, understanding where we're trying to go, and then just drawing a path to it.
Yeah, and I would add kind of, and it's not something we put forward in the messaging a lot, but I think another really key secret weapon, if you will, is the idea of empathy and getting in the mindset of our customers, understanding what they need and what they're looking for, but more importantly, into the mindset of their customers and understanding where they are and what they need and what it's going to take to add value to their lives today, not just from the perspective of a service or product provider, but from someone that genuinely wants to build relationships with them.
Speaking their language, being authentic, and strategic, of course, right? You had mentioned the psychology and really the sociology earlier. That's really important to understand how we function as buyers and consumers, right? And when we want to be entertained and when we want to be educated and what should that look like and all the different verticals and industries that you serve and how that varies. Where do businesses fall short then when it comes to social media marketing, and why is it so hard to get what you want out of it?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of areas that businesses fall short. I think they kind of sometimes come off a little tone deaf. There's a mission. All businesses have a purpose. They want to be profitable. They want to gain new customers, but there's not a lot of tact that's going into how they, get that opportunity to earn business. And so a lot of times we see that they're just promoting their services, and they're not really following this balance approach between serving up content that's going to be of value, that's going to be entertaining, going to be educational, and they just straight promote online. That's one mistake. There's other mistakes that they make.
Yeah, I think another area too is you're familiar with Napoleon Hill's 3 Feet from Gold story, right? And the gentleman that had bought the land rights to a place where he had found a gold mine and bought all this equipment and, came in and was doing all this mining and finally gave up and sold it for dirt cheap to somebody else who found out that they had literally stopped 3 feet from gold. And so I think about it almost in the same way, right? Social media, we know, and not just social media, but all marketing. And there's kind of this network effect, right? And the success and results build over time. In my observation, social media is oftentimes the thing that businesses only do when they don't have anything else on their plates, right? And so they might go at it for a couple of weeks and not start to see those results, and so back off, and then they don't pick that up again for another 6 months.
Or they get busy because it's successful and they go do what they need to do, and they forget that that's how they landed with additional attention and opportunities to serve people.
And so they keep stopping 3 feet from gold, right? And then the dirt erodes and it piles back on and they lose all the traction that they did get. And then they're starting from ground zero all over again. So that the strategy, the creativity, the knowing your audience, and that consistency is so important. Yeah. Showing up every day. And just much in the same way that you do, participating in the community, right? It's not just about posting from your own page, but about going out there and joining conversations and adding value in other places, because that's what starts to increase the awareness of your brand and starts to get you involved in the conversation.
That's a great point you bring up about awareness. I think that's the other thing. The other mistake is thinking that it's a conversion tool, that it's you're going to put content out there and it's going to translate to somebody coming directly to your website and directly transacting with you. And that's not the way it works. It's about getting exposure for the brand, increasing reach, and starting to get people more familiar with your brand. And the key is, really getting people to follow you so that you can turn them into a fan of your brand. And when somebody's a fan of your brand, they're likely to buy from you.
Actually, something like 80% of people are more likely to buy from a brand that they follow on social media than from a competitor.
And you have to be in position for when they're ready,
exactly.
Right? Years ago, with my now ex-husband, we had a real estate practice, and we sent out a newsletter. We're talking, 20-something years ago, probably. About that long. And it was the typical recipes and a business partner highlight, the pest control guy that we referred, and just neat things, a little bit about us as a family, that kind of thing. And the back page, Dale always wanted to make sure we had our listings. But this newsletter went out to hundreds of families all over the valley. And in my early days of learning about marketing, it's like, why would you put these houses on the back page if we know that someone from, the West Valley isn't going to buy one that we have, 2 doors down from us from our neighbor? And he explained it much like we're describing here, that we need to show that this is what we do, right? We're not, passing out recipes and writing a cookbook, but that's fun. But we need to constantly be in front of them over and over and over again to show that we have inventory, that we are selling houses, and we're helping people list their homes for the right prices, so that when they're ready, they will know that we're the people who are right in front of them. It's like, when you're pregnant, what do you see? All pregnant women. Or if you just bought a red car and a Volkswagen, what are you going to see? Lots of Volkswagens and red cars. So is it about that positioning and being ready through education, entertainment, and relationship building? That's how it works, huh?
Right. And then just occasionally putting those listings on the back page, right? Just like the same as if you have a conversation with someone, a new contact that you meet at a networking event, you don't start off by handing them your business card.
But some people do.
Well, right.
But yes.
You start off with a conversation and make a connection. And then as you're wrapping up, oh, hey, here, take my card.
Yes.
Right. It's like that kind of that final moment where it's just that introduction of what you do, that little hint to what you might be able to do for them, but really just focusing on that connection and building, adding value.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting point you even brought up. You were sharing recipes. And what's that got to do with real
not
estate?
A thing.
But it was value.
Yes.
Right? Your audience was valuing that. And that's the game here, is add value to other people's lives. And like I said earlier, every business has a unique place that they come from. And so you just got to get strategic and creative about what can I add value to that's related to what I do, so people don't forget that I'm here and that I have a service to offer. But that's a great example is the recipes that you're sharing. And that really opens them to that. And you never know, that person may have a sister that's in that neighborhood that's looking for a house and says, hey, this house looks perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a great strategy.
How important then is social media for businesses? I mean, I know I can think there's several businesses it's important for, but would you argue that social media would be important for really any business?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's certain businesses that are going to have an easier time with social media and may get a faster ROI with social media. But the idea, the premise of social media is, at minimum, as a business, maintaining a relationship and staying top of mind with your existing customers. That could be for any business whatsoever. Let's take the plumber, for example, right? And I may just be putting out some kind of light content, some fun content, whatever it may be. It doesn't always have to be about unclogging a toilet or whatever. But staying top of mind is really important. I mean, some of the fascinating stuff is, especially as you start looking at, younger generations, they have systematically stripped advertising out of their world. There are streaming services that they don't have ads in, right? They're not commonly listening to traditional radio. They have streaming services for their radio. And so they're actively trying to eliminate ads from their world. But what they are willing to do is wake up and invest an hour of time in bed scrolling through social media before they even start their day.
From a relationship perspective, I have never heard it explained that way. And I've got my 12-year-old and my young 20s, young 20-year-olds. And I had not ever realized that that's what's happening with TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram, whatever. They're still engaged in branding, but it's through the relationship.
Big time.
Versus in your face, buy this,
Correct.
Or that well-planted, whatever it is, in the middle of a movie or something like that.
Yeah.
And if your business is targeting people under the age of 35, and if your primary business target is millennials or Generation Z, social media is by far the most important channel you can be using.
Mm-hmm.
And that, so even at that age level or that age group, professional businesses, the attorney, the doctor, the financial planner, those, you've got to be on social media because, to your point, that's where we're going and building relationships. That's where we're going to ask for referrals. That's where we're going to ask for recommendations.
I mean, look at the Mom Network on Facebook.
Yep.
I mean, that's serious.
And it's also where people turn whenever we're in a pandemic and locked in quarantine,
right?
That's
so
social media engagement spiked by 32%.
32%.
A massive jump. I mean, the amount of time that's being invested, we're talking hours a day by the average person into social media.
And so the big brands get it, right? They understand the importance of social media, staying in front of your audience, being in front of your audience at all times. A lot of small business owners get it, but they don't necessarily know how to invest the resources or the time or the value or the time to get value out of it. But this whole pandemic and economic crisis is just so illustrative of why it's so critical, right? I mean, small businesses literally had to close their doors unless they were offering an essential service. And we're seeing them not being able to recover and dropping like flies, and so many small businesses closing because they didn't have that virtual and digital foundation, where if they had already had that in place and they were able to continue engagement and building relationships with their customers and gaining more reach during that time when their business was closed, it would be that much easier to rebound.
I love that you're sharing that. And two particular restaurants that we frequent come to mind, Rigatoni's and Good Time Charlie's. Both had, I think, a fairly decent presence. I have so many different things that I follow, Facebook specifically. I was following both restaurants, but I don't know how often they were out there. But when I was laying in bed and scrolling during the early days of quarantine, for both of those business owners, those restaurateurs, to speak specifically about the impact that the quarantine and the fear and the pivots and the shifts they were making, like Rigatoni's put in a drive-through window really right away, yep. Right? And the gal who owns, I think her name is Charlie, who owns Good Time Charlie's, was really talking about, we rely on live bands and we rely on, opportunities for people to come together and celebrate. And so we're struggling to pivot. And I love my family, my servers, my cooks, and that has made me want to keep showing up for both restaurants so that I can see them pull through. And if they hadn't had that presence, it would have been lost on them.
What a different opportunity too, right? Than advertising a deal on a plate to actually build that story with you and build that connection with you. And that's part of the creativity in social media. Is it's an opportunity, if you will take it, to build a different type of relationship with your customer. And Trinity's an absolute expert at customer loyalty and what it means to be creative in that. I know that you've given many examples, but you've got an example I heard recently from you about a restaurant giving away its recipe. That's something you may want to share, but it's so powerful what you can give people, and it builds a different sense of commitment to that brand and that company.
Right. I mean, think about Rigatoni's, for example, right? And, you're closing your doors. Everyone's going into quarantine. The whole world is freaking out. Obviously, there's no toilet paper on the shelves, right?
Which we still don't really understand. But anyway, I've got plenty at home. I don't know why.
But, sending out look, guys, our doors are going to be closed for a while, but here's a recipe for our famous sauce. Give it a try. And if it doesn't work out the way you want it to, that's okay. We'll be open again soon. And then following that up with hey, we're going to be reopening next week. Here's a coupon for a free version of that recipe whenever you come back in, so that you can continue adding value, keeping front of mind, show them that you know them, that you understand how this is affecting their lives, and share your story. Don't be afraid to be real and raw and share that with your community, right? Because that's what builds the empathy and the connection and the authenticity that people are really looking for.
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, you think about it, going back, to the 80s even, the yellow pages were a really big deal. And that's where you were found. There wasn't a search engine. There wasn't a lot of these, and maybe it was radio, and there was other things too that you maybe discovered in, but the yellow pages is where you put your money, and it was expensive.
Strange to think that's how we did it.
Yeah. And how different to open the yellow pages and see all these competing businesses in a category, right? Versus seeing a friend of mine in social media give their approval of a company, which is 10 times more effective for me to make a buying decision with than just choosing out of a listing.
And from that business perspective, hoping that you come up with a really great name for your business that's in the beginning of the alphabet.
Sure.
Right? Because when you flip to auto mechanics, you want to have whatever. Al's, right? It can't be Zeke's. It's got to be Al's.
How many businesses have been named AAA, something or other, right?
They were.
So that they could be at the top of the yellow page.
And what a weird way for us to default to finding that service provider unless we have somebody that we can ask and ask for a reference.
It's so powerful.
And so that's part of the extra power of social media, right? Like 71% of people that have had a good experience with a brand are willing to share that experience with their network. And so it really becomes this full circle, where you're not just increasing brand awareness and starting to build engagement and loyalty with new people and eventually converting them to customers, but also better serving your customers and then leveraging the good experiences that you provide your customers to come full circle and bring in new business.
So you mentioned the 70%?
71%
are willing to say, hey, I love this, right? And I didn't realize it was that high. That's great. I think we've become savvier participants to social media too, because I know, and I don't know what the number would be, but perhaps you do, there was a time that, people were only barking and saying something when it was a negative experience. And that was very harmful for businesses. But I think we've become savvier, and businesses and our social media coaches and the teams that provide that for us have helped us navigate. I have never had a personal experience where someone has negatively said something about me, knock on wood. But I know that that's been detrimental for businesses. Is there a number? Do we have stats?
I have seen it. I don't know it offhand.
Yeah.
I know
the willingness to leave negative over positive, you mean?
Right.
Yeah.
I think that both percentages are actually about equal.
That would make sense to me.
And, people really genuinely want to share those great experiences and those unique moments and those, think about, are you familiar with Chewy? They're an online pet supply
I am
company.
now, because I'm a new puppy mom for one full day, and I already have my Chewy membership.
Yes. And so, when Chewy members are on auto ship, sometimes, unfortunately, we lose pets. We have to call and cancel our auto ship. And Chewy sends a condolence package.
Aww.
They send flowers and a card, and so sorry for your loss.
What a big difference.
People share that on social media.
It's a remarkable moment from the brand.
So influential in that brand's growth.
That's fascinating. I love them even more.
Yep.
I've always seen ads, but I've never had a need. So it was one of the first things I went, okay, I got to figure this out. And how smart is that? Because I don't know how likely it is that family or that individual is going to go get a replacement pet. Oftentimes they don't. Mm-hmm. So Chewy knows that they may no longer be a client or a customer, a recurring customer, but that heartfelt condolence and that humanizing, the humanity. Wow, that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. It's the right thing to do.
Yes.
First of all, right, for your customer. But the added benefit is when you do the right thing for people, they like to share it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
They because there's something about our lifestyle that is, the brands that we choose are part of our lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And it's a reason why Nike is so successful and why I'd rather have a pair of Nikes than another pair of shoes, because it enhances my image in some way, just association with the brand. So when a brand puts that kind of work in, then I'm willing to share that, even in a moment of pain. If I'm a social media driven type person, I'm going to probably take a photo of that because it's so remarkable to me that they thought about me, and then extend that to my network. And how many new customers that didn't know about Chewy that went to them and said, "Oh, I'm interested in this."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's how it works. And that's really the magic of social media is it's leveraging authenticity and allowing people to respond and then share. And so that's where brands have a real power out there. So
I'm thinking of another example, and I think this is a great little segue because I'd like to know your opinion about this. My husband owned an auto shop in Chandler for 3 years. We've recently closed before the end of the year. But a friend of mine reached out and tagged me on social media knowing that Mike owned the shop because she was at Sprouts and she was trying to help this gentleman get into his car. He was locked out of his car. And she's a big social media gal. She doesn't own a business, but she's just, she's one of us moms on there all the time. And she's like, hey, Karen, is this something Mike could help with? And I happened to be on social media and he was home and I'm like, hey, he's like, well, let's get in the car and go. So we grabbed our 12-year-old and we just, drove a mile and a half away, got the car open within minutes. She's taken pictures and by the time we got home and settled in, she's already put out there that Mike with Chandler Auto Repair and Service had helped out, somebody in need. And to have watched, and this was on, I think she tagged his business, of course. She didn't have his thing, but I'm pretty big on social media as well. I mean, I'm out there a lot for those, my little circle of friends. But to watch other people pop in and not only thank him, but also say, he's done that for us, and just boom, 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 boom. And it was all genuine. It was all authentic. So there's a neat story about, again, how social media can really leverage us. But the point I wanted to kind of invite into the conversation and get your take on was this personal piece of us and business, right? So, how do you advise people, or what are your thoughts around, we've got this brand, Chandler Auto Repair and Service, Business RadioX, and then we've got the person, the owner, or the people that are employed by that business. So open topic. What do you think?
For me, one of the most refreshing things is when you see humanity in business. So there's so much that comes into play there, right? It comes a lot back to business values and making sure as we're hiring and expanding our team that we're bringing on people that align with the business values, and that we're all kind of comfortable representing the same set of values and things that are important to us. And we can be extensions of that business out there in the world. And actually, I saw this post from a LinkedIn team member yesterday. And it was something along the lines of, look, in the last 30 days, LinkedIn has posted, whatever it was, maybe 15, 20 times. The LinkedIn employee network has posted like 6,000 times. Those weren't quite the right numbers, but that flip and the idea of how much more potential reach you can get by leveraging your personal relationships and your personal networks. And if you're supporting businesses that you feel good about and you're working at businesses that you feel good about, then it feels good to share that content and share those experiences, and everybody wins. And it's so in line. I mean, I've read this conscious capitalist credo before, right? That I see up on the wall. And I've been kind of sneaking glimpses and stretching my eyes to read it again. It's so in line with that, right? It still comes back to that. Adding value to the community, adding value to our lives, feeling, people were so inundated, especially now with so much
heaviness,
negative media content and heaviness in the world. And we want to celebrate the little moments. We want to share the things that make us feel good. So, think about that from the perspective of a business owner. What kind of little moments can you share with your customers that they'll want to celebrate?
So beautifully said. And I didn't know that about LinkedIn, but that makes sense. And I've seen that. I've seen that uptick in participation from the employees.
Well, and brands are many small and big businesses right now, in light of the current social environment, are taking a big stand. And they're not afraid to put their voice out there and to contribute to the conversation and declare their values, right? Businesses have often been reticent to get into any kind of political or social arena. They don't want to alienate anybody, understandably so. We all come from our own backgrounds, have our own beliefs. We all have the right to those. But it really takes, when you think about the influence that business has, that's what it takes to create a big shift.
And I've seen, what I'm thinking of as you're saying that is this conversation on racism, right? This most recent conversation. And I've seen businesses and individuals support other businesses and individuals based on the beliefs that they've had. And I've seen them exit based on the beliefs. We're having a show on Wednesday. A friend, Karen Loomis, who owns No Moss Brands, reached out and said, can we do a segment on racism and the impact that it has on small business? So Thomas Barr with Local First Arizona will be in with us Wednesday. Karen Loomis, my friend Dre Harris with Dulas Consulting, and a gal from Sedona, Camila, I think Harris is her last name, in the arts and theater. We're all going to come together and have this conversation. And when you were sharing, Trinity, I was thinking, I've been a little nervous. I know what my values are and my beliefs are, and I'm like all about let's just love on each other. Green, purple, whatever, it doesn't matter what at socioeconomic level. We are all here to take care of each other. Part of conscious capitalism, right, is everyone wins, stakeholders, even competitors. How do we take care of each other, our earth, and our community? And yet, I'm a business owner, and I know not everybody shares those beliefs. So I've been a little anxious, but I'm like, you know what? This is what my role is. My role is to educate, less entertain, but more to educate and really help move the needle on the dial towards taking really good care of each other.
Helping raise the consciousness of humanity.
Yeah. So I don't know where this conversation is going to go, but I did make sure, but I did say, it was Karen's idea. And I said, hey, I've got somebody who I think might have an opposing opinion or maybe a different take on where you're coming from. How would you feel about me inviting that person in the conversation? I was very pleased. She said, well, of course, right? And so it'll be this nice, diverse conversation. And I'm very much looking forward to it. It's critical. And then the cool thing about the way social media works, right? She's like, okay, well, can I put it as an event on Facebook? And I just looked before you guys got here. I'm like, wow, we've got some people we're going to be listening live. And that's not always our, big thing. We hope we have live listeners, but the meat and the evergreen opportunities really in the podcast. But yeah, this is such a rich conversation, and it helps me. I'm thinking about my business, right? Having owned it for 3 years and have mainly done most everything by myself up until recently. Social media and adding the podcast to the website and meeting new people and, booking shows and, how it is as an owner of a business the first several years. The live listeners and my own social media, right? So I'm really aware with the team that I have right now that for 3 years, I've only been doing enough. It's only been this kind of cookie cutter thing. Hey, if I have a hosted show and it's sponsored, that's where the revenue is for us, and a business or an organization is paying for their spot, we're going to pre-promote it the day before the day of, and then we're going to throw it up there once it's been a podcast, and we want people to share. But beyond that, we really haven't done anything else. So now we're starting to be more like, okay, well, how else are we influencing the community? How about Karen, the owner, as a leader and an educator around culture and conscious capitalism? So we're now finally starting to have a little bit more momentum. And I'd imagine those are the conversations that you have with your clients, that just doing enough might get you by. Right. But you got to have a strategy so that you can get to where you want to go, and let this be one of those conduits that help get you there.
And you have to be willing to commit to that strategy for the long term, right? Because you'll have some moments, you'll have some topics that are aligned with the social events that bring in this spike of live viewers, right? And those moments are great, but you need to be committed to that long-term strategy to get that exponential growth.
Yeah, and if you don't have a strategy in place, then you're going to be just throwing spit at the wall. Interesting.
Yeah, it's an important time. I think it's, this is, you kind of asked about people at a company, the owners of a company, how do you leverage that when it comes to social media? And, it's about authenticity again. It's about people. They care about people. They don't really care about companies. They care about what's really happening at the company. And that's where all these current issues in our climate are really important for businesses to understand that it's not so much that the corporation has this voice, it's people at your company have voice. And we've seen this trend, right, for the last 15 years at least, where the social responsibility of a business has become more and more and more important to consumers. And I think that's only going to get much more important to them as time goes on. I think it's important that as a business owner, you're involved in those conversations and that you allow your business to empathize with what your audience is going through and get connected on those points. It's only going to strengthen your opportunity.
And the willingness to be vulnerable to a degree is kind of what I'm hearing in that, just based on the examples that I've shared. Part of being authentic is the willingness to be vulnerable.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, sometimes when the word authentic gets thrown around, it feels so yucky because it's still so, I'm going to be authentic and here's how I was taught to do it. That's not authenticity at all, right?
Not at all.
But being vulnerable and willing to stand up and say, like I mentioned, Charlie with her restaurant, like I'm worried that we're not going to get to take care of you. And this is a very hard decision because I've put my entire life into this restaurant and I don't have, coffers, money hiding, in suitcases underneath my bed. Like this is it. I need to be in business. Yeah.
It's interesting, with everything that's going on. There's been so many instances of growth in civil rights, and now it's amazing to see how much movement is happening right now. And you go to even just, Amazon Fire, you open up that product and Black Lives Matter is all over as a masthead on that. And you've never seen the corporations identify with this movement like this. And I think sometimes people feel like that's maybe like, oh, they feel pressure to do this. But I think they're with it enough and they understand enough that this is of great relevance. And they have to take a stand. They have to be involved in this movement, not just for their own well-being, but it's the right thing to do. And quite frankly, we're just not going to buy from companies that don't approach it that way. And so I think some people see it as a risk to their business or alienating certain audience, but you got to really have conviction in what you believe as a company and your values, and you got to get that out there.
And the conviction is important, right? There's definitely a lot of scrutiny about purpose wash, right? Brands that will put a social post up to gain some brand equity aligned with the movement and leave it at that. That what we're seeing now is that it has to be followed by action. It has to be aligned with a conviction across the company to have those conversations.
Smarter, aren't we? We're smarter consumers.
Well, yes, absolutely. And I think in this time and place too, though, that we're so apt to let moments pass and brush things under the rug and go back to the status quo. And as a whole, I think that society and culture is not willing to accept that as the default now. And that it really is time for change. And
not just the story about it.
Yep.
Or
not just the
reel.
one black graphic that you post on your social media feeds, but what does that start to look like across your organization for the weeks and months and years to come?
Love it.
Yep.
Triniti, how did you get on board with Joybyte?
The co-founder of Joybyte is Ben's wife, Michelle. And Michelle and I had the privilege of working together about 8 years ago to launch a conscious fashion brand. The short runway of the brand, but just super joyous project to work on and really creating a conscious capitalist model for this business that we were going to market with. It all handmade, ethically sourced, supporting indigenous communities worldwide. And that project was just a joy. And, I was at the time and then for years after immersed in B2B marketing software.
Which is equally as exciting.
It definitely the toughest industry to cut your marketing chops in. I mean, they're really at the leading edge and learned so much from that experience, but kind of felt like my soul was dying. I've known for all of my adult life that, my point in this world is to make some positive impact and help transform the way people see the world. And just as I was leaving, Ben and Michelle had an opportunity opening. They really needed someone with my skill set to come and help grow the agency. We went through a rebrand and, really drilled in on our values and who we serve and who we want to serve and the difference we want to make as a business in this world. And it's been awesome.
Yeah, I can see it in the enthusiasm in which you listen to each other and the way it's just fun to watch the dynamic. Really great.
It's only because I have headphones on. I cut Ben off all the time.
You're very, very well behaved today. You haven't done that, I don't think, even once. Did you tell her, look, I'm going to dock your pay if you cut me off?
So, look, I need to look really important on this. So don't
right. So I want more airtime than you. I can see that coming from you. Totally not.
No.
What has it been like for you to have her on the
incredible.
team?
It's been incredible. I mean, I feel like my journey has, even dating back to events that were before that experience where you met Michelle, my wife, I feel like it's been very organic in the way that opportunities have opened up. People have come into my life and into my journey. So it's bizarre because I've always said that the incubator for our company was the experience that you and Michelle had building that company. The work that was done in a short period of time was so explosive. It was so inspired. And on the outside of it, that's when I was at ASU going through the graphic design program. And here I was expanding horizons at the same time. So there was such a synergy there between what Michelle was working on, what I was working on, and ultimately starting this company. So it was serendipitous when we knew we had this opening. And I mean, it was days. We had a conversation, Michelle and I, we're ready for this role in our company. And then we saw, I think, a social media post. By the way, great job on social media again here. But a social media post from you that acknowledged that you were leaving after 8 years, a role that you had held, which it was. I mean, I think we called her at 10:30 at night.
10 o'clock at night. I got a message
we
from Michelle. Are you awake?
Yeah,
I need to talk now.
I love that.
Yeah. So no, it's been a really cool journey. Triniti is so creative, so strategic, such a wealth of experience, and we have a great time. We have a really good fit creatively, I think, in the way that we brainstorm, and so it's been a real awesome experience to work with Triniti on our projects and on our own company and reshaping what we are as a business.
And it's pretty interesting. I mean, we'll often start a session kind of at opposite ends of the spectrum, or, one of us has already gone through the work in our head that the other one hasn't. And you've got to take the time to go back and go through that work again together to get to the same place. And we always arrive at the same place at the end.
But you have to do the work.
That's pretty exciting.
You have to go through that process and recognizing not only that's a necessary part of how you all function together, but out of respect and compassion for each other and the process.
Right. And that same thing applies probably to all your conversations that you do here, but especially thinking about the upcoming one you were referring to, right? Just recognizing that we're all starting at different places, coming from different places, and we as individuals have a lot of insight to share and an education and experience to add. And when we're willing to take the time to share that without thinking, oh my God, will you just hurry up and get on the same page already? Great strides can be accomplished in that 1 hour segment.
In a company, of course, you want to arrive at the same place. In the example that you've given around our upcoming show, I'm going to advocate that we don't have to. We can leave the hour-long conversation and not necessarily agree, right? But I suppose even in business.
Seeds are planted.
Yeah, but seeds are planted. Yeah, love it. So is the team at Joybyte bigger than the three of you?
Oh, yeah. We've got 20 people here at our office in Old Town Scottsdale.
Wow. Yeah.
So
that's substantial.
Yeah.
And those are technologists and creators and strategists and social media managers.
Graphic designers and
Yeah, love it.
Great pool of talent.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your clientele. For our listeners who are like, wow, I'm intrigued. I want to learn more about Joybyte. Is there a particular industry or size business? Like who is kind of, you mentioned you rebranded and got some more clarity around who you serve. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that first of all, our Joybyte Lite program is really a wide-ranging program. It's something that can help a lot of businesses. It's designed as a cost mechanism too, where it's a fraction of having an in-house employee managing this stuff for you. So that just off the base there, it's available to almost any small business out there. But for us, our ideal customer, we love working with companies that really are purpose-driven, that are on a mission to do good. It aligns really well with our own creativity and our own values. So that's a space that we've done really, really well with. But, we've got a couple niches that we work pretty well into. We work with brokerages and real estate professionals and lawyers. And surprisingly, lawyers have been a really good part of our clientele as well.
Authors and speakers.
Yeah.
One of our favorite clients is an ex-couple who wrote a book called The Happy Divorce.
Yep.
And so they are just helping to fuel this positive divorce movement and recognizing that there is a different way to do this. A lot of nonprofit organizations we support, branding and websites and marketing, and some health and wellness and lifestyle companies.
So what is the best way for somebody to reach out and see if they are a good fit, and equally if you're a good fit for them? What's the starting point?
Well, the starting point is to set up just a session with us. We do a discovery session as the starting point of every relationship, and so that's an opportunity for us to get to know their business, get to know what their goals are, and our conversations always start with, "What's your vision? What's your 5-year goal? Where are you trying to go? What are you trying to do?" And because you really can't even get into the micro strategies of a business until you know that. And so, but the best way to find us is just to go to lite.joybyte.com. And Joybyte is spelled JOYBYTE.com. from our website, you can schedule a session with us. There's a button on there that says, let's meet, and you can schedule time. We have an open calendar. We give that time to anybody who wants to schedule that session. And sometimes it translates to us working with a customer, and sometimes we just give some great value to everybody and help them understand their business a little bit more. And they go on their merry way, and they come back some point usually. So
yeah, good.
I know you have something on your mind.
Do that because it's twice now. I rarely completely blip out, but I've done it twice for you. Maybe it's because we got the video going for the first time in a long time. Triniti, do you know what Ben's referring to? You have something you wanted to share.
She has no idea.
I have no idea.
Do you know? Can you drop a hint?
Usually I can tell when Triniti's over here, kind of okay, when he stops talking,
I'm going this.
in.
So. Well, I was actually, you did reference earlier that you have a team now and you're working really on leveling things up. We have a colleague at the office who is our social media master. Mariah and I would love to donate some time to come in and sit with you and just talk about strategy ideas and creative visioning and any value that we can add. And
I love that.
Just do a little brainstorming
That's exactly
session.
Thank you. That's exactly how we do it. And you mentioned that, whether, you offer this discovery session and you hope that, I always say to folks, I want you, mine's called a show concept meeting, right? After you've had an experience like this, which is my wreath on the door, if somebody's looking for a way to have more content, to accelerate the relationships with the right people they want to do business with, they want to elevate their exposure in social media and just, be out there as a leader and an influencer in their industry, we're a great fit for them. But the only way you'd know that is to come and have a conversation with me. So I do the same thing. It's a 60-minute show concept meeting. Come sit down with me. I'm going to ask some of those same questions with you that are important. And then we're going to build a show around where you want to be and who you want to be in the world. And we build out a guest list of 40 to 50 people, because oftentimes when people are doing podcasts, at least the way we do it, which is all around shining the spotlight on somebody else, we want them to leave already having their guest list in hand. Because it's very different showing up to a networking meeting and saying, hey, I'm Karen Nowicki on Business RadioX, that we shine the spotlight on businesses around the valley. We'd love to have you be a guest. That's very different than, hey, I'm Karen Nowicki and I'm a business strategist, and there's 9 other business strategists in the room getting ready to say something. And that's really, at the end of the day, who I am. I'm a business strategist and I'm a coach. But this is my way of showing up in the world to do
platform.
that. Yeah, and it sounds like it's not unsimilar to you guys. So thank you for the invitation. I will have to take you up on that.
And sometimes it's all people need, right? They have the team, they have the bandwidth, they have the content that they're creating, but they don't necessarily know what to do with it or how to get into that place of not sharing their own content and what creative ideas they can come up with to add value.
Yeah. Prior to opening the studio, I co-owned a social media company. I'll leave it nameless, but you can go look it up because it's on my LinkedIn. And it's very different than what we're talking about. It was wildly successful. We sold it to investors. I still get, some neat checks every now and again. But it was to keep the costs down. We did some unique things, but we left out the human connection and the piece in there that we've spent this whole hour talking about. And so I share that very candidly, because what I'm learning from you and my own experiences, right, in building my business and my brand with the studio, is that you want to make sure you have your social media team on the same page, being that voice for you. Right?
Absolutely.
There's some business owners who still do it themselves, and, God bless you and good for you for doing it. But when you're ready to take your business to the next level, you've got to have a team in place, and they have to resonate with your core values and the way you show up in the world. And if it's cookie cutter, it gets sniffed out. If it's the same old thing, and you're just plunking it on there thinking that, well, I posted, 4 times this week. Well, that's not going to cut it.
No.
Yeah.
No, in fact, the masthead of our website says your social media soulmate. And the funny thing about that is that came from a client. They said, we found our social media soulmate. We have other comments from our clients that say, I can't tell the difference between you or me. I don't know if I wrote that.
I love that. I was going to ask each of you, and we can close with that, because if you can believe it, it's already been an hour. I love that. I was going to ask you, what is a great compliment that you love hearing or you would love to hear? You imagine yourself hearing from clients, and it sounds like this is at least one of them for you.
Both of those are fantastic.
Yeah.
Both of those.
I heard
we've heard a few times that that they feel like they're our only client.
Oh, okay.
And
I missed
so
that
that's
one.
fantastic when you can, make people really feel like we've got their back. And especially during, we did so many strategy rewrites and pivots this year, and just over and over and over again to respond to real-time circumstances, and knowing that they have that kind of support and a partner that can not only help them figure out what to do, but then execute on that.
Yeah.
Love it. And then to your point that they say, I don't even know if I wrote this. I couldn't tell. It was so good. I couldn't tell if I wrote it or if you wrote it for me.
Yeah. As a business owner, it's really sensitive when you let somebody take the voiceover for you.
Yes.
It's a very difficult thing to let go of, especially if you've actively been doing it. But even if you haven't, it's really tough to trust somebody else to represent your business out there. It's something that we've done extremely well. I had somebody recently ask me on a discovery call, well, what kind of automation do you use? And I said, well, proudly, zero, none. We don't use automation. We're real people that come up with strategies and engage with your audience and actually bring a real voice to your business. I'm really proud when I hear that I can't tell the difference between you guys and me, because it just means we're in sync. We get you. We're probably adding a lot of value out there for your brand.
Love it. It's been so fun to get to know both of you. I'm very pleased that Amanda, is it?
Yeah.
Made sure that you guys landed here with us today. Again, the website is Joybyte, JOYBYTE.com. And then the Lite is
LITE.joybyte.com. So we've got a special site set up for that program.
Very good. And are you on social media?
You bet we are.
I'm cracking myself up. Of course you are.
Joybyte is on social media, yes.
Very good. Well, thank you again, Ben and Triniti, for joining us today. It's been a lot of fun. You've been listening to Phoenix Business RadioX, broadcasting live from within the Mac 6 Conscious Workspace studio. Some media leans left, some lean right, and we lean business. Until next time, I'm Karen Wicki. Thanks for listening.